Hi, welcome to Ted's Modeling Technique. It's been a little while since I made a video. My subscribers are asking me when I'm going to come back. Well, I'm back, and we're going to continue with the funny car build that I started a while back. And the next line of progress is going to be the fuel and oil plumbing on the engine, blown engine on an early, like a 1995 funny car. So in order to do all that, we need to make our braided lines. We need to make AN fittings. So this is going to be more of a how-to video. The next video after this, part 2, is going to be the actual plumbing of the car. So first off, I want to get into how we're making those braided lines, how we're going to make the AN fittings. And we're going to be using Protec's braided lines. Really nice line of product here. It doesn't collapse, bends easily, can hold its shape. It's easy to work with, and I'll show you how. And also they're machined aluminum hex fittings. Now painted anodized blue and red, it really looks like an anodized real-life AN fitting. So I want to thank all my subscribers, and right after this we're going to be getting into the actual plumbing of the car, oil lines, fuel lines, as I said. So can't wait to get started. Thank you again. Before we can make our AN fittings and braided lines, we need to know what size lines we're going to be working with. We need to know the quantity of fittings so we can paint them all in advance. I made up a little sheet here showing me which scale I'm working in and what size the lines are. Going from item to item, whether it's hard line, braided line, soft line. For instance, over here I've got from the fuel pump going up to the barrel valve, 35 thousandths line, and then 25 thousandths from the barrel valve to the distribution blocks for the manifold and the blower, and then of course smaller lines from there going out to those items. And also another type of a sketch here to show me the routing placement of items. You know, very helpful to get an idea of what exactly you're doing before you do it. And we're going to be painting these machined aluminum hex fittings with this duplicolor paint. We've got an anodized blue, anodized red, and it's going to look really nice on those machined aluminum fittings. It's going to look just like an anodized part. And then a little later we're going to be using this base silver on part of the AN fitting, not the hex fittings themselves, but on the AN portion itself. So I'll just show you this now, and we'll discuss that later. But you don't use this on the aluminum fittings. And then what I do, I get all these fittings together that I need. I know what sizes I need. I know how many and what color I'm going to use. I put them on this little piece of styrene rod. This is probably like 1/32 or something. Fits almost all the fittings. And then I'll put these fittings on here. You can kind of see where I've already painted some previously. And then I put these little paper clips on the ends, not only to keep everything from falling off, but I have a block of styrofoam in the bottom of my spray booth, and I just stick this in the styrofoam, and it holds it for me. And just make sure that you've got enough spacing on these so that you're able to shoot all the way around on both sides. Otherwise, you're going to be having some flat spots. Let's start with a 25 thousandths line. We're going to make a 90 and a straight fitting here, and maybe on a couple of different size lines. Protec makes their braided lines from 18 thousandths to 25 thousandths, and then 35, 45, 60, and 80 thousandths. And their fittings go from 25 thousandths up to 80 thousandths. The difference between some of these, the big difference is the 18 and the 25 thousandths, like this one, does not have the core, the insulation over the copper wire. The copper wire makes this not only stiff so that you can bend this and it holds its shape, but it also doesn't collapse when you're making 90-degree bends or some kind of a larger bend if it's not a close radius 90. So on this 25 thousandths, actually, let's put our fittings on here now while we've got a clean end. So let me start with the red, because the red would go against the braid. And then let's put a blue on there, because the blue would be the AN fitting itself. Come on, there you go. Okay, so we've got those on there. So we just kind of push them out of the way, and we could, actually you could drill a hole if you're going to make a straight fitting, which we're going to do here. You could just glue this right up at the ends, and then drill a hole big enough for that to go in. I kind of like to drill a smaller hole, so let's just cut off a little bit of the copper here. We kind of roll this braid back and forth here. Not too much, because we don't want to cut through that copper. And that's all we got right there. We'll take the two fittings now with a little bit of future and toothpick, and to get a little bit on the toothpick here. Bring these up and just put a little bit of future on the end there. A little more. And then bring those two fittings up. And there you've got it. There's our straight fitting on a 25 thousandths line. And you know what I've also been able to do? You could take this and just dip the whole thing right in the future. And we got a little speck of dust there. It's going to dry clear and makes a nice solid piece. So now let's look at the 35 thousandths line. Oh, and if you were going to make a 90 here, you would just make the bend and put the blue fitting on the other end of that. Working with the 35 thousandths line and up to Protec's largest of 80 thousandths is only different in that there's a piece of insulation on the inside of this 35 thousandths line that isn't on this 25 thousandths line. Now this happened to be a straight fitting, but of course we just put a bend on that and another fitting, paint the elbow portion blue, and you've got a 90. On this one, let's make a 90 on this 35 thousandths line. I go back about a 1/4 inch, roll it like you did with that 25, and as soon as you see a little bit of copper, you want to stop and pull this off. This is the difference. You want to take this little bit of the braid off of that rubber insulation and pull that out, because we're going to reuse this. So let's throw this braid away. And then what we're going to do is put this back on here, because this is going to be the body of our AN fitting. So there we go. Once you get it on there, just a little twist normally gets it going. So you put it all the way back down to the braid, and I've already got fittings on this one to save some time. So we bring the fittings up to the end of the braid where the rubber insulation is. Of course, we would glue this. I'm not going to do it right now just for time's sake. But let's say these are glued in place. So then we make our 90, and this 90 needs to be a close, tight 90. And otherwise it's going to make too large of a fitting, and it's not going to be realistic. So now we just need to put another piece on the end of this, another fitting. What Charlie at Protec recommends is, because this rubber insulation is a smaller diameter than the braid outside diameter, because it's smaller, he says to go with a size smaller hex fitting. So in other words, we've got a 35 thousandths line, 35 thousandths hex fitting. We're going to put a 25 on here, and then we would glue that in place, and then we go back and paint that elbow, and that's all we need to do. What Charlie uses is tester silver as a base, and then to me, a clear blue on top of that. And he'll put this together first and then paint it, because he says that the paint will crack otherwise. What I found, because this is kind of a small area to be painting in, let me take this off. What I do is I'll paint that little piece of insulation first. Um, as I put the rubber piece back on, I'll just leave it off of the copper a little bit. I don't know if you can see here. This is away from the copper. There we go. This away from the copper here. And I slide this little piece of swizzle stick, stir stick that I get at Starbucks on there, and paint it. And that way I've got the same color blue as I have on my fittings. And I kind of like to do it that way, and then I end up with a fitting that is like this. Now, if I need to do a little touch-up, I'll take a plastic spoon like this that I have in my spray booth anyway for practicing colors, and I'll spray some paint in here, and then I can brush it on the fittings if I need. And this happens to be, I don't know if you can tell on this video, here's a 35 thousandths hex fitting on here. And although it'll work if it's glued, you might be able to see it's just a little crooked because it's a little larger because of the outside diameter difference of the rubber insulation versus the outside diameter of that braid. And that's pretty much all there is to it. But, you know, I have been able to, let's make another one here. I happen to have that end bent over. If we, in lieu of trying to get that little rubber piece back on, let's go back and cut this again and look for that little bit of copper. Maybe a little too careful here. What I can do is, well, it didn't quite go all the way through. Let me try just a little more here. What I can do is, instead of peeling that off, I'll kind of loosen up this braid on here and then slide the braid off. And that way you don't have to try to mess with getting the little piece of insulation back on here. Of course, now it's going to be difficult, huh? There we go. So then now you're ready to put your fittings on here and paint it that way. So another option. So it's recommended by Charlie or ProTech to go with the size smaller hex fitting on the end of your AN fitting when you're making a 90. And again, when you're making a straight fitting, you don't really need to peel any of this off. Just put your fittings on the end. So if this was a straight piece, let's cut this off here. If this was a straight piece and we've got our fittings on here, we bring our fittings up to almost the end. And we'd glue them right there, and then drill a hole large enough for the braid. I just like to drill a little smaller hole, so I'll take that braid and the insulation off and drill a smaller hole, but it's really up to you. Okay, we've made our lines, made a few different sizes, made some straights, made some 90-degree AN fittings. So let's see how we use those in the car. We're going to go to the next part of this video and actually do the plumbing on the funny car. We're going to start with the oil lines and then progress to fuel. And I hope you join me. Thanks again.